Okay, we are going to learn about the next transformation, which is called a reflection. So a reflection flips a figure over a line of reflection in order to create a mirror image. And remember, after you do that, you should pause the video and reread that and think about what that just said. So each reflected point of the figure should be the same distance from that line of reflection on the opposite side. So we're going to deal with the lines of reflection with the X and Y axis. So it says to highlight and identify the line of reflection in each of the examples. So on this first example here, it is reflected over the X axis. And in the next one, you can tell that it's reflected over the Y axis. So that would be your line of reflection. And that causes that mirror image. So remember, this is the one where the vertices don't stay in the same order. Because if this was A and this was B, now we have B here and A here. So the vertices do not stay. Okay, so we're going to practice reflecting the figure, and then we're going to record the coordinates on the pre-image and the image. So again, remember that each of the reflected points should be the same distance away. So first of all, we're going to write the ordered pairs of the pre-image. And so remember, we're going to go in alphabetical order. So we have W, X, and Y. Wait, X, Y, yeah. I had to think about that. And so the pre-image, the W is over 2 and up 6. I don't have, it's hard to write with this, so I will put parentheses, but probably not on everything. The X is 7, 4, over 7, up 4, and then the Y is over 2 and up 2. Okay, now we're going to reflect it. So you have to do every point the same, so there's different ways you can look at it. If you look at the W, it's over 2, so you need to make sure you go over 2 this way, and then you got to go up to the same amount, and so it's up to the 6. And so we've got to go up here and put our little dot, and mine doesn't work that well on here. So we had back 2 and up 6, and that was for W prime. Okay, and then for X prime, we have, it goes over to the 7. So we're going to go over to the 7 here, and then we're going to go up to the exact line. So we need to go right here. And I need to label that one W prime, and this one's going to be X prime. Then that ordered pair is -7, 4. And then for Y prime, we're going to go over 2. So we're going to go back this way 2 and then go on the same row. So it's right here. And that would be your Y prime. And then we need to connect the dots. And mine is hard to draw on here, of course. So hopefully yours. But you should be able to tell that it's exactly flipped and in the same spot. There's 2 places here. So there should be, did I even do that right? Let's see here. Yeah, 2 places there. It looks funny because this line looks closer to the 0. So, but yes, it's correct. And I don't think I wrote -2, 2. So now you're supposed to look at that, and we want to find the algebraic stuff like last time. So what patterns do we see in the ordered pairs? So if we look at the W, the X stays the same number, but the sign changes. And then the Y just stays the same. Okay, and if you look at the ordered pair of the X, the sign stays the same on the X, and then the Y stays the same. And the same with the Y. The sign changes on that, but your Y stays the same. So if you're going to describe that, the X becomes its opposite, you could say, or changes signs if you want to say that. changes signs, becomes its opposite, and then the y stayed the same. So how do you represent that algebraically? If you write an ordered pair to represent the sign changing, that, remember, negative means the opposite of. So the x is the opposite of whatever it was, and then the y stays the same. So you just write a y. Okay, and then we're going to do it to the next one. So if you want to pause it, you can, and see if you can do it yourself. So if you paused it to look at mine, check to see if you have all the same ordered pairs and that you had the prime markings. Remember, you should be putting parentheses around those, but it's hard for me to do it. And if you notice, it is flipped. So like the straight edge here, this F and E gets flipped up to here. And then this D would land right on here. But you notice the vertices are not in the same order because we have F and D and then D and F. So it told us to flip it over the x-axis. Now let's look for the patterns. So now if we look at the x, the ordered pairs with the x, we notice the x has stayed the same this time, and the y, whoops, I wrote that wrong. This should just be a plain 2. I did write that, but it just can't tell very well. And the y changed. And then here, the x stayed the same, and then the y went from -7 to 7. And then here, the x stayed the same again, and the y went from -7 to 7. So if we describe the pattern, the x stayed the same. And so when we represent that, the x just stays the same. And then the y flipped signs, or you can say became their opposite. The y changed. And so we represent that by doing the opposite with a negative sign, y. So it doesn't mean that the y is negative. It just means it's the opposite of what it was in the pre-image. Okay, so I would like you to try this next one on your own, number 3 and 4, on the back side. And then you show me that before you go on. And then you can, we'll just keep doing one at a time and showing me.